107.7 The Bone with Chuck Billy from Testament.
How's it going?
Good. This is crazy. Like, this just accidentally happened. I literally just texted you. It was like, hey, what are you doing? And you're like, I'm recording right down the street from your house.
Yeah. Well, Juan's place has been here. We've been doing, 4 records here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the place we do all the tracking. We've been here for, a couple months now. And we're getting ready to leave for Europe in July. So we're like, we got to get everything done in June. So this is our goal, to finish everything this month.
You have so much going on. The new album is almost done.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, if you're in here, right, it's down to vocals. How many tracks are we looking at?
There's probably 11 tracks, and then we have some covers that we've done. And we actually did a couple re-recordings, a song off the Legacy and a song off the New Order, just to have a newer version, and we re-recorded them.
Wait, so you're re-releasing the remasters?
Yeah.
And you're doing a re-recording of
just one song off of each album.
Oh, okay.
Our thought is, we're pushing the remasters. Why not pick a song off each, and then let's mix them, make them sound current, and just maybe put that out there to maybe push those products. I don't know.
Okay. Is this going to be part of the 11 tracks, or is it like 11
No.
and then 2 bonus?
These will just be total separate, just for fun, marketing.
On the internet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there thought to videos coming out behind them, or you just don't have
We
the
don't
time?
know yet. We don't know, but we're running out of time. We took off from November last year to write the record. It took a while. We just got in the studio May and June, so we're finishing up. And right now, once we leave in July, we won't really have time until December. We'll be like gone, which is a good thing. We'll be busy, but we'll have like a week or two between tours to do any extra overdubs or anything. We're going to live with the record, which is really the first time we get to do this, because usually we'll record it and it's written in stone, where now we know, usually we have Andy Sneap mix it and he's not available. So we kind of have some time to select somebody else. But in that time, we're going to live with the songs and come between tours to make any adjustments or changes if we have to.
You mean between
tours.
legs of the tour,
Yeah,
right?
well,
you finish up at the Warfield October 27th.
Mm-hmm. But we go to Europe and we come home in August, and we start the U.S. tour. So we have like 10 days or 11 days there before we start. And then after that, we have about 10 days before we start a European tour with Kreator and Anthrax. And that'll go through December 16th. And then we're home for the holidays. And then we'll start thinking about mixing and finishing, getting it out there next year.
So we're not hearing this until 2025.
No, and we hope to have a single maybe, just towards the end of the year, give whoever we select one song. Let's see how you do, see if we're happy before we do the whole record maybe. And, so it's actually, it's a pain in the butt, but it's still a little more convenient for us this time. The record is very aggressive with this one. We have a new drummer, Chris Dovas, who's really putting a fire under Eric, and really, really got some really heavy, fast, I don't know, it's the word modern maybe, I don't know, but current, how about that? Current sounding. So, Chris is adding to that.
So initially, for the most part, Eric would write the very bulk of the music, and then you guys would collaborate after he had everything kind of sketched out, right?
Yeah, Chris.
Is Chris in on the early process?
Yeah,
with
Chris.
Eric?
Chris has been coming out since probably December, maybe a little before that, and going to Eric's house. He's got an electric drum set there, so they've been working, writing, putting all the stuff together. And at the beginning of May, once Eric started tracking, we decided that let's bring Alex and everybody in, except for Steve because he's on tour. Let's bring Alex and everybody here to the studio, and let's just go through all the music, all the songs, and make sure we're all happy with the arrangements. And every song got changed as well. Once Alex got here, we all started putting our heads together till we're all happy with the arrangements. And then he left, and we said, okay, Chris, now here's the new stuff. Let's do it and track it. And he knocked it out last month. And now it's the rest of us are up to finish.
Do you think that's partly due because Alex and Chris speak that special Berkeley language?
I don't understand that language.
Not
but,
Berkeley, California, but
yeah,
Berkeley School
Berkeley
Music
School
language.
Music, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they do that on tour, using the lingo, which I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention. I think I know what you're talking about. But once they got in here, the arrangement and the timing of the drums and stuff, they were really formulated on, okay, whatever they were saying, I'm going to do this, Alex. This is why. And Eric's just back going, yeah, cool. It made him, I guess, correct. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but it was enough to where all said, that makes sense now, the songs. Instead of, because for me, a lot of it sounded like just jamming.
Uh-huh.
There was a lot of Eric and Chris doing just jamming. And a lot of the songs they put as songs were a lot of jamming pieces where I'd come in vocal and go, well, wait a minute. That feels like a verse, but then it goes to this, and I don't know what this is. So we're kind of in that stage where that's why we thought, let's get everybody together, because if we do this and then bring it to Alex and he goes, well, maybe why didn't you guys do this? We didn't want to do that. We wanted to make sure, let's decide now or forever hold your peace. It's going to be that for life. So we're being a little more thoughtful on this record. We have the time to do it. So I think it's going to be a killer record.
I feel like that's kind of a departure from Eric's style in the past. Like, has he I think it speaks to how comfortable he must be with this new guy to just kind of not necessarily give up control, but to share the writing in so many ways like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is Eric's riffs, but they're put in the proper places or cut out if we don't need it, So, and it's good for me because I didn't really get to sit with Eric. I just let them guys jam and just come up with as much as you can, and we'll sort it out later, which that's what they did. But once, Chris came out, then we knew, okay, it has to change, or we're going to just have the same record, and maybe we wouldn't be happy when it was all done. So I guess Eric, not compromising, but being open to like, okay, let's bring Alex in. And also, Eric's actually been going to New York. He actually went and worked with Alex out there, which he hasn't done that in the past. And I think having Chris be available, because like Gene or whoever we worked with didn't have the time to come up as much as Chris has. Chris has spent a lot of time here, which has been good, and really pushing Eric to make music. And we're at a point now to where Eric's like, you know what, this has been fun. I think I'm just going to keep bringing Chris on. Let's just keep writing songs. Even after this record's done, let's just keep making songs, which I think is great, because that means we can get a jump on the next record, because not spring chickens,
Yeah.
It's like, let's get it done now while we can.
Plus now half the band is on the East Coast and half the band is, or a little over half the band is on the West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's going to be really good. I'm looking forward. I never know what the record's going to be until we mix it, and because they're all just individual songs, and I go, okay, they're great, but until we mix it and listen to it as an album, it's when we realize, wow, this came out better than I thought. Wow, this is really good. But this one, I'm excited going in before the mix, because I just know each song is one step up from the last record,
So,
as far as aggression, maybe,
lyrically, sometimes you do an album with a full theme. Sometimes it's just a theme within the song. Are there any particular themes you're on?
Not as focused like, the aliens creating mankind and that kind of stuff, but there is some of that. There's a lot of, each song definitely has its own identity, lyrically. And again, we're writing stuff that is real, that happens with the song environment. We're singing about that again. AI, we're singing, stuff about that. That's a big thing. So, I mean, there's always an inspiration, for songs. I think it's a little easier. There's so much going on in our world to write about now. It's a crazy world today. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And I like singing about what's real and what's going on instead of some fantasy lyrics, because I think when I sing them, I just, I have more conviction. I believe them a little more, and maybe it's easier for me to remember the lyrics, live. Yeah.
Are there any titles that you can share with us? Song titles? I know the album title is still kind of up in the air, but
yeah, I mean, there's some. There's a song Havana Syndrome, which is about the Havana Syndrome. People look that up. There's Infanticide AI, which is another song going AI direction. And there's actually a slower song. We haven't done a slower song. I'm not going to say ballad, but I'm going to say a slower song that has a lot of, groove and soul, called Meant to Be. And it's like a classic Testament type, ballad, I guess, if you want to use that word.
okay.
But we've got a little bit of everything. But again, I think it's really sticking to Testament, having to have some melodic stuff, even though there's some really brutal lyrics and real brutal, he's more of a death voice. I still put the hook in with more of a melodic hook or something. It's still classic Testament. If you listen, you go, that's Testament, but a little more octane to it.
But we're not going to see much of any of this until late in the year or next year.
Yeah, probably early next year.
Okay.
Because once we get home in December, that's when we'll really, hopefully we'll have a single done by then, but that's when we're going to, okay, it's time to get it mixed, talk to the label, what window's open for us to release, and then just get it done. And then next year, it'll be out and start a new record cycle at the first quarter instead of, at the end. Since last record we released during COVID, right when it hit, we put the record out,
like,
which was our choice.
Yeah.
But, we figured everybody's at home. They're going to get to hear it, but we didn't realize 2 years they're going to sit at home and it'd take us that long to get back to work. But, that was our choice. And once we went back to work, it was fun to get back and tour those songs. And we're still playing that stuff. But this next tour, since we are promoting the Legacy New Order, we're doing a Legacy New Order combination set from here through the end of the year, just kind of pushing the record.
Well, this is my favorite part because I was there when it kind of happened. I vividly remember hanging out at your older house, the house you used to live in the pool, talking about getting the masters for your first 2 albums because they were somehow lost and you couldn't get a hold of them. Please tell that story.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, back in, I think, around 2001, we wanted to remix those records, and we didn't own that yet. So we wanted to mix in Atlantic, didn't want to cooperate, so we decided let's re-record some songs that we like. So we went and did First Strike, Still Deadly, and re-recorded those and kind of put it on the burner that, okay, we're not going to remix these records. Over time, I tried to find those recordings, and Johnny Z had them, and apparently he says he called me and I didn't either respond or I know I didn't say no, but he goes, I threw him out. And I'm like, no way, no. So we're a little upset. And then after 35 years, bands retain the rights back to their music. So the Legacy was coming up on 35 years. And so we're like, okay, well, once we get it, let's remix those. Now that we're going to own them, let's look into that. And so we contacted Alex Perry-Alice, who did the first 2 records in Ithaca. They weren't there. We talked to him. He says, no, I sent them to Johnny. And then one supposedly went to Atlantic. And then we contact Atlantic and they says, no, we can't find them in the vault. And so we're like, oh no. So they're just gone. So I did receive some stuff from Johnny and I looked through it and it happened to be the 1/2-inch master mixes unmastered. So I'm like, okay, well, at least we have the raw stuff. I can go in and remaster these. So that's kind of what sparked it, to go redo these. And then I brought them to Nuclear Blast because all of our stuff is there now. So now I just said, okay, all the Atlantic records, one at a time, as we retain the rights, they're going to you guys. So now that's why we're pushing the Legacy New Order, and we get Practice What You Preach in August, and then Souls of Black the next August.
And where are those masters?
I have those. So we did those records at at Fantasy in Berkeley, and Fantasy shut down. Mm-hmm. And they called me and said, hey, we're shutting down. You want your master tapes? I'm like, of course, I'm coming down. And I knew they were old, so I had to have them all baked and transferred to Pro Tools. So I have them all on hard drives for Pro Tools, which will be nice. We get to remix those. But we listened to those, and it's like they just maybe a little tweak. And those aren't so bad as the first records.
Mm-hmm.
First records, we didn't know how to make records. We didn't, how to make it sound better. We were just glad holding the record, going, "We got a record! Wow, this is cool!" So.
And that's how they kind of pushed people into making records back then, especially in metal. They were like, "Just put the record out; people will buy it. It doesn't matter. They're going to the shows."
Exactly, and it's great, and you can't recapture that what we did. But I think sonically we could have made it bigger and better, and sounding current with technology today.
Wait, so who had to do that? Take those half-inch tapes and convert them and remix and master them?
Me and Eric and Tommy Jones went to Nashville, and had them remastered there, and we put them up, and so we A/B'd the old one and the new version, and what a difference! I mean, they just grew and became big and had bottom end bass to it. I don't know if it's a downfall, but we put a lot of effects and delays and stuff on those records. But when we remastered it, it kind of dried and sucked those effects up out of it. So it just sounds raw and in your face and loud. And so we're like, I can live with that. I don't miss that effect or anything. I love the way it sounds now.
Everything was distortion delay back then.
Delays,
right?
A lot of delays on vocals or little tricks, things on snares, flanges, and all that kind of just got absorbed now. And it just sounds,
that narcotic attention to detail that was popular in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we didn't know. I mean, I did a demo before that of 3 songs. That was my only time in a studio. So making the first record right away, I didn't know. That's your job, Alex. I have no idea just what we're doing.
So are we looking at a physical release and a digital release of the reissues?
Yeah, the reissues will be first on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, it's really cool when they decided to do that. They're going to first do vinyl. And they asked me and Eric, "Do you guys got any cool pictures or anything you can dig up?" So I said, yeah. We went into what we had, and I actually received boxes from our first manager / attorney, Elliot Kahn, because he retired. And he's like, "Where do I send these boxes?" He sent me like 20 boxes of files, and he was very good at keeping files and keeping everything. So I got it home, and I never looked through. I just stored them. So I said, I'm going to go look to see what Elliot has. So I started going through that, and he had the original contracts for everything. And I even found a letter that he wrote to Johnny and Marcia saying, "Hey, I got this band Legacy. I'm going to send you a demo. If you have a listen, let me know if you have any interest." I mean, I found all this cool stuff. So we put all that in like a 20-page booklet in the vinyls. It's awesome. Really cool. So it's got really fun photos of us in the studio. And of course, that was our first time really out of California for most of us. And we were thrown right into the snow in Ithaca, given a car to drive. And, it was a learning experience all the way around. But, now that we have it, and now that we know we're going to retain the records, I'm looking forward to what Nuclear Blast, they're like so happy to have everything. I mean, everything we've done.
And you trust them to put together the package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came out really nice. So they're going to do the vinyl, and then down the road, they'll start doing CDs of it. Mm-hmm. But out of the gate, they're going to, I'm sure digital's going to happen out of the gate. Yeah. I know that we retain the rights back in the US. Atlantic still has it in Europe. But with Tommy and the label manager now has been talking to Atlantic to make sure it's at the same time digitally to go worldwide. So it'll be available, which is great because the contracts we had 7 years ago, we weren't talking about digital.
And now you have the original, so you can go back and look and say, well, if we didn't address digital back then, we have to renegotiate digital now, right?
Well, yeah, we renegotiated that and then negotiated a better rate with Nuclear Blast, now. So it's very good.
I mean, that's kind of, there's so many stories about artists just getting really bent over when it came to contracts back then, contracts now, with digital being a thing. And there are so many artists from legacy artists that are not getting fair shares and not getting renegotiated because there was something vague in the language in their contracts from back then. and they're just being negotiated to Spotify.
Yeah, they're
without even being involved.
Yeah, and that's why we don't retain the rights to the rest of the world, because one sentence in that contract that prevents us from doing that. I mean, we maybe try to fight it or argue or borrow it, but we're like, it's not worth it. We're happy to have the U.S. We'll sell imports everywhere we can if we have to. But yeah, that, and the big thing in that, in the old contract said satellite TV. There was no satellite radio then. I remember it was like on TV. You have the
they
satellite.
meant MTV. That's what they must have meant, right?
Well, not even MTV. I think it was on, I don't know what channel, but it was like Much Music kind of thing on television. That used to be something back then. And so the new people were trying to interpret it like, well, no, that's satellite radio. It's like, no. 35 years ago, nobody talked about satellite radio. There was satellite TV, but not radio. So it was a little discrepancy, but we worked it out.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the tour that we're going to see you here on, you've decided to go out on theaters, headlining, and Testament, Kreator, and Possessed. How did that package come together?
Yeah, it's a co-headline with Kreator. Yeah.
Not in San Francisco, it's not.
Yeah. Well, we closed the show, but it's a co-headliner though. We did some shows in South America with Kreator, and we had a great time with them. We all hung out, and we decided let's do it in the U.S. and the opening act was a tough one to figure who we're gonna get. Someone that is same era as all of us, and someone that hasn't saturated the market too much. And Possessed was like the perfect choice. Don't play out a lot, and they're a great band. And it was funny. I called Jeff and asked him if he was interested. I'm like, Jeff, it's Chuck Billy. So no, it's not. I'm like, yeah, it is, dude. You're pulling my leg. And I'm like, seriously, Jeff, I'm telling you. So I offered him the tour, and he goes, okay. I go, please just call your agent. He knows what's all about it. And he goes, okay, I'm going to call my agent, and I'm going to call you right back. So calls me back, goes, oh man, I'm sorry, man. Yeah. My agent says it's on and it's true. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, dude, thank you so much for thinking of us. And, it's going to be a great tour. It's going to be a great hang. It's going to be a great show. Kreator puts on a great show, killer show.
They were amazing at the Regency.
It's going to be good. It's going to be really good. And then we follow up with that right after that tour. We go to Europe with them and Anthrax. So that's going to be, a big tour.
Headline?
It's going to be 3 headline sets. Nobody's being held back.
Nice.
Production or lighting. We're opening the show, which I'm fine with that. I'd rather get off early, go to bed early. But it's going to be 3 headline sets for everybody. I think we all have the same amount of time to play. So it's going to be really good. And that's going to go through November and the end of December.
Now, what is this thing about you not smoking weed on the road anymore?
I've stopped doing that maybe, 4 or 5 years ago. I just, because I smoke so much weed, and the way I sing, I'm a windbag. I need a lot of wind. And I just felt it affecting my performance.
Mm-hmm.
I just was getting winded easily. So I'd said, I'm going to try not to smoke weed on tour. So I did it the first tour, and my voice held up, and I felt strong the whole time. Like, you know what? I should be doing this because I'm at 100%, not, trying to struggle through it. And especially when the sets got longer, when we're playing an hour and a half or longer, I was like, man, I need some help. I need some wind. So I started doing that, and then I just noticed I feel better on the road. I'm clear. My voice holds up. I'm singing way better. And we've been off, like I said, since November. So, and when I say I smoke a lot of weed, I mean, it's like an ounce every 2 days. I mean, I was going through a lot of weed. And so I knew we were getting ready to do the record and get ready on tour. So around April, I'm like, man, am I wheezing? I'm breathing in, going, I'm wheezing. What's up? So I'm like, I better start now and get my together. So May 1st, I was like, okay, that's it. And I just cold turkey it. I'm like, that's it. I felt I was a jerk for like 2 or 3 weeks, just ornery. And I got through it, and I've been, riding my bike and running and getting my lungs up. And now I'm feeling like back up to par where I'm at. And then we started doing the record. So I'm like, okay, now my lungs feel good. I'm feeling ready for the record as well. So the record actually gave me the more of the incentive, because usually I'll wait up right up to the last minute if I know, okay, I got to do it now. But I knew the record, it's important. I got to get that. I got to sound good on the record, and I got to be ready for the tour. So it all worked out. And, you know, I'm feeling great. The record, I'm singing good on the record. I'm ready for tour.
So you're not even swapping for edibles. You're just like, taking a sober
the first
break.
2 weeks, I was in edibles because I had the sweaty palms. I couldn't sleep. I was just didn't feel right, you know.
Yeah.
And
okay. That makes more sense.
and then I weaned myself off of that, and then just was done. And then, you know, I wasn't really drinking much, so I was kind of offset with a little bit of drinking, you know. And
I'm the same with carbs.
and so now I'm like, you know, now I feel great, and my head's on straight and thinking straight, and I'm ready.
Nice. One thing I always love to talk about is how I like to credit you with the resurgence of Bay Area thrash, because when you got sick and we had Thrash of the Titans, bands that had all gotten day jobs got back together.
Yeah.
And when they got back together, everything happened again. It was like the Bay Area just clicked, and all these people who thought that thrash was over, or that the Bay Area was done, or that they were on to their new lives with wives and kids and houses and jobs, were like, we can still do this.
Yeah, and the labels were right behind them, jumping at that, and all the bands, like you mentioned, like the Death Angels, you know, Exodus, and everybody just full steam ahead and making great records.
Yeah.
All of us have been
still
making records that are current, moving, getting better and better. Like wine with age, we're, you know, everybody.
We're 2 decades
you know,
on.
Now Forbidden's, you know, doing it back again, which is great. I'm just happy that, you know, because I've always asked about the Bay Area. What was it like? What was the scene? You know, so I'm always talking to people about that. And it's hard to explain because, you know, we're just experiencing it, and you don't really think about it's something new in a movement till now you look back, and it was special. We grew up in something very special here in the Bay Area. And everybody wants they read about it, and they want to experience that, and they want to have that in their local areas. So I think it's great for all the bands that have stuck with it and are doing great. And I don't see them either, like me, going, there's a date when we're going to stop. Let's just keep going till people say enough's enough, stop, or you can't do it anymore.
It felt like we all kind of hit a wall in the 90s, right? Like the record labels were not interested in anymore, and music was kind of pivoting, and people just needed to make a living, and everybody kind of just faded away. And then you just hard started it all over. And honestly, I don't feel like it slowed down at all.
No, it hasn't, you know, and during that time, in those 90s, a lot of labels are dropping bands, and just the deals are falling apart because everybody was looking for the new thing happening. And bands like us, you know, like our Demonic record or the Low record we did was our last record with Atlantic. And we're a little discouraged. We'd just broken up. Alex left. Okay, things are changing. Radio at that time, I remember it was like 170 something stations across the country still playing metal at drive time, you know, where overnight it felt like it went down to like 30 stations. And we're like, wow, what happened? You know, metal is just not getting a chance. So we were kind of angry and just kind of wrote aggressively, now let's just be heavy then. There's no A&R guy breathing on us anymore saying, where's the next singles or, you know, stuff like that. So everything changed for us. And I think it progressed again and started again. I think it's like definitely a full circle, especially today, from where we started, where we went through early 2000, a lot of great new bands started reviving, growing, making a lot of fans, especially like Pantera. They kept forging right through that, you know, early 90s stuff, which was awesome. You know, they were the ones holding the torch for everybody. But then, you know, now there's so many new bands that I hear them on the radio going, who's this? You know, and I learn about them, and it inspires us. So it's like we're getting inspired by the next generation, you know, and it's reversed, where they were inspired by what we're doing, and now it's taking this full circle where we're being re-inspired.
It's the Aurora Boreas, the snake eating itself.
It is.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have inspiration when we started. We were kind of breeding off the attitude of punk rock and the aggression and that being different and stuff. We didn't have the scene that we love to do. And now bands have took it to another steps and broadened the sounds and experimented with thrash and death metal and all this. And there's so many different genres of metal now. It's good, but it's evolved so much now. It's inspiring the guys who were back there at the beginning, you know.
Who are some of the bands nowadays that you're listening to that you think are really inspirational?
Well, I know like Eric, and Eric's always been a black metal fan, especially having Chris, you know. Yeah, I know he loves Lorna Shore, bands like that. Escuela Grind is like, you know, really brutal, really fast, aggressive stuff, you know. But then all of a sudden it hits you with a melodic chorus or something. It's like, yeah, you know, cool. And it's just re-inspiring us, you know, like this record we're doing. It's I think people will hear like, wow, it's a different Testament. It's Testament, but it's got some octane in it, you know, now.
It feels like kind of the core theme was thrash, where you had to have your driving beat, and then you had to have your really impressive guitar solo, and then you had to have your stop, and then you break down, and then a completely different piece of music that went back into the thrashy bit.
Yeah.
And now kids have taken that and just really extremely changed the bits and rearranged the songs to where you're like, oh, wait, what?
And actually took like a rock sounding music of a band, but put brutal vocals on it, where you're like, whoa, that could sound like, you know, Foghat or Thin Lizzy, but wow, the vocals are heavy, like, you know, Deicide or something, you know, and you're just like, okay, but I get it. I get what they're doing because maybe they love the whole genre, or their parents turned them onto something and they're experimenting, expanding, which I think is great. And again, it inspires us, you know.
I'm always amazed because people don't, those kids don't remember what it was like in the 80s, where everybody was just so serious. And it felt like there were rules. And if you stepped outside, somebody was going to violently stop you from doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for sure. And especially for a band like us, the ballad thing is like you know.
You took so much flack for that, right?
Always, you know, but again, I'm proud of those songs we've done, you know, and I wouldn't change a thing because, and even today, I know that, you know, even though we're inspired by a lot of people, we're not going to try to sound like them. We're not going to change who we are to say, okay, I want to sound like Slipknot now. We can't do that because I think we'll get more slack and flack from the fans for trying to do that. And we've kind of, you know, as many years as we've been writing our style of music, I think that's what we know. That's what we've fine-tuned. I don't want to say perfected, but that's what we do best. And I don't think if we try to change, it's like, you know, we're going to start here and try to perfect that or get better at that. And I don't think we're going to want to do that. And I don't want fans to kind of say, oh, now they're trying to be this. I don't want that. I want them to just go, okay, that's a Testament record, or put it on and go, I know that's Chuck singing. You know, I recognize that, you know, I'm familiar with it.
What do you attribute yours and Eric's relationship having this staying power to? I mean, you guys have been the pillars of Testament for 4 decades now. And you still seem to be...
We're brothers, and we fight like brothers, argue like brothers. But I think in the last 5 years, I'd say we've probably came closer and are actually more real friends. Like, you know, we're probably the best friends with each other. You know, we could say that. Where in the past we were bandmates and friends too. I don't know. I think because now, you know, in our older years or whatever you want to call it, we enjoy the moments together and relive the past, but also talk about what could we possibly do in the future. You know, what haven't we done? What could we do? And Eric is always like, I think that's what's always kept Testament, because Eric doesn't try to ever be like anybody. He really doesn't listen to it. He listens to his black metal, few bands he loves. And so I think when he writes so much, like one record won't just be just the same. He's got such a variety of writing and riffs that it really keeps the record has just a lot to it, You can't just not hear the first song, go, okay, that sounds like the last song or every song on that record, and you turn it off because you've already heard it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always different. You don't know what you're going to get, So, and I think of this record, the same thing. We have, some really cool, like classical Testament, some either cool, like classical rock stuff, some slower, so we slow it down, but then there's some really brutal stuff, so there's a little bit of everything in here. And we feel really good about it. And, in the past, we were kind of like, what's Alex going to think about trying to do and be a little heavier? He's right on board. He loves it. He's right in here with Chris. And that even makes it better now that even Alex is in, we're all in the same, we all have the same goal now.
Didn't it seem like such a big deal when Alex left the band? And now looking back over the whole of Testament, it was such almost a blip.
He's been in the band longer now than he was then. And of course, when he left, we were upset, disappointed, felt let down a little bit, but we didn't understand it as well as we do now, because he was a teenager, made a record, and then took off. We did a record 4 years in a row and just kept touring. He didn't really have a teenage life. He grew up playing metal and music and doing that. So looking back, we go, I get it now. He wanted to reach out and do his jazz and do things like that. And then once we got back together, we knew that we didn't want to put him in that same spot. So we always said, Alex, when we're done touring, do your jazz, write your records, do whatever. We'll just all work around each other's time and schedule to make this work. And that's what we've done. And I think everybody's been happy. DiGiorgio, he does recordings for everybody and does things. So everybody has their thing. Gene at the time was doing other projects and recordings. So everybody got to kind of do what they need to do, but then regroup together when we went to do Testament.
Does this mean we might see another DDP project out of you in the next year once you get past all this?
I don't know about DDP because, Willie passed away.
Right.
And I think at that time, he was a big part of it. And when we played our final show in Europe, we all said, okay, we can't get any better than this. We're opening up right before Black Sabbath. Let's end on this note. So that's what we did. And when we lost Willer, it's like, we probably won't do any more DDP after that. But I am, I still want to do a solo record, and I want to do something that's not Testament, different, bring in some musicians. I've been asked like Jamey Jasta if he would want to produce it. And he's interested because I did some stuff with Jamey that was really good on the solo record. And so we've talked about it, putting some songs together, putting a band together and get some songs made.
He's a guy with good side projects too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, we did Milwaukee Metal Fest. So we talked about it then, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm down.
I always feel like those festivals are like summits because it's part summer camp and then part everyone gets together and is like, hey, what do you got going on? Hey, what are we doing? And things come out of those that don't happen. People aren't going to just call and be like, hey, let's do a project. But they seem to magically come out of these festivals. Totally.
But that in those festivals is where you don't really get to see all your friends in bands unless you're at the festival because, touring, you're only with a couple bands and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you catch up. And that's kind of how the Kreator thing happened when we went to South America. We just had a good time hanging out, had a lot of fun, and decided, hey, let's not make this end here. Let's do some more. So that's kind of what spawned the US and the European tour.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Testament at the Warfield, October 27th with Kreator and Possessed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have to wait for the record to come out next year.
Yeah, it'll become better. Hopefully depends if we get it finished and get somebody to mix the song early. Maybe something will come digitally early. I don't know if I said I recorded a song off the Legacy New Order, so maybe that might hit earlier.
Okay.
That's
maybe we'll
goal.
Catch one of the cover songs at the Warfield show.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know them all. We picked a handful of songs that we recorded. We don't know what's going to stick or what we'll keep, but yeah, some cool stuff.
Okay. Anything I'm forgetting that you want to talk about?
I think we covered it.
Yeah. We went full circle.